Hello and welcome to a brief lecture on your argumentative research paper. Really what I'm going to do here is focus on the process, the different steps that I want you to go through during this unit to ensure that you end up with a product that you're satisfied and that helps you earn the grade that you're trying to work towards. Really though, if you just followed through the stuff in our handbook and part 3 on doing research, it would walk you through a lot of these same things. All right, so I've got 7 steps up here, so let's just begin with the first one, which is to choose your topic. A couple things you need to know about choosing your topic, other than the fact that this is a very important step, to make sure you choose something that is going to be satisfying for you in terms of, spending time reading about and learning about a subject that matters to you. The number one thing is it must be a controversial topic. I explained this a little bit in another video note, but it's very important that whatever topic you choose has 2 sides to it. I mentioned in my video note drinking and driving, that's not a controversial topic. It sounds controversial, but it's really not, because there's not 2 sides to the argument. Child abuse, there's not 2 sides to that. There's not a side to the argument that says, oh, well, we should abuse children, right? It's absurd. Now, I have had students write papers about things like spanking, and that certainly is controversial, but that's different from child abuse. So anyway, make sure that it's controversial, but make sure that it's interesting to you. And I've had students choose things that aren't necessarily academic in nature. They might have to do more with popular culture or sports or something like that. Whether or not the moon landing was a hoax, or whether or not Kurt Cobain really committed suicide or was murdered. Things like that have worked in the past as well. So make sure you allow yourself a little bit of freedom to think about that. Please notice though on the prompt that there is a list of banned topics. They are, if I remember them, abortion, the death penalty, same-sex marriage, illegal immigration, and legalization of marijuana. And there's a couple reasons why those are banned. Number one, they're just super common topics. They're hot button issues, and so lots of papers have been written about them. They're really easy to plagiarize because you can go on the internet and find just an endless number of papers to copy from on those, so it helps try to weed out the plagiarism, and also I just don't want to read any more papers about them. Having said that, if you have some interest in one of those topics that's really focused and serious, I might consider it, but in general, please just try to find something not associated with that list of banned topics. The second step is to locate your sources. In this day and age, of course, most of us are going to do most of our research online. Please be aware that your best place for this are the Johnny Logan Library databases. These can be accessed through the Logan homepage. There's a link to the library, and then you are able to access all these databases. Mostly this is periodical information, newspapers, magazines, things of that nature. If you get in there, remember to use databases like EBSCO, CQ Researcher. Opposing Viewpoints is a really good one for this paper, and there's a whole bunch of other ones in there you could use, but that's really where you're going to find quality sources. If you go out on the internet at large, in other words, you're using Google to try to find sources for this paper, that could be okay, but remember that I'm going to judge the credibility of each one of your sources before you ever even write your paper. That's one of the reasons why you have to submit a copy of your works cited before you submit a draft of the essay, so that I can ascertain whether or not you're using quality sources. So if you've just gone out and found a bunch of blogs on the internet talking about your controversial issue, I'm probably not going to accept any of those. So if you are using the internet at large, remember that .edu is going to be the suffix in those web addresses that guarantees the highest level of credibility. Now, of course, it's also fine if you want to do newspaper searches online. If you want to go to the Chicago Tribune or the New York Times website and look for articles there, that's great. In fact, that's just as good as finding them through the library databases. But again, I really want you focused on those databases. You can access those remotely or here on campus. So try to do that for your sources and let me know if you have any questions about that. So you have your topic, you have your sources. What do you do next? Well, one of the assignments that you'll have to submit next week are source notes and an outline. And so you've got to generate that and create that. Here's what I do for source notes. I would have my, say I'm going to use 5 sources. And I've got all 5 sources sitting out there, on my desktop, and I go into the first source and I copy and paste everything out of that source into a Word document. Everything I think that I might want to use in either a paraphrase or a direct quotation. And I put it in that Word document. And I go to the second source and I do the same thing. It's just a lot of copying and pasting of information that I think I'll want to use in my paper. By the time I'm done, I can take those 5 sources and just recycle them, get rid of them. I don't need them anymore. Now I just have this single Word document that has all the information in it I need. I also, when I was copying and pasting stuff into that Word document, I also took all the information from each one of those sources. I would need to create a works cited page because that is the next thing in the process here, is to create that draft. Of course, I do also have an outline on here. My thing about outlines is do it your way. If you like to do something very detailed, that's great. But I want to see some indication that you have a notion of the organizational strategy of your actual research paper. So it can be real formal, it can be real informal, but it needs to be there. Okay, so again, step 4 is just a draft of the works cited page. Again, that allows me to ascertain, before you spend all this time actually writing a paper, whether or not the sources you have are going to meet my criteria for good sources, and then also we can start tinkering with any problems you're having with formatting that works cited as well. In the next step, you compose the first draft of that essay. Important things to remember in this essay: one would be that you need to have at least 1 citation per source. In my next video, which will come next week, I'm going to, in detail talk about how to create works cited pages, how to create in-text citations for sources. So if you haven't written a research paper recently or ever, that may not make a whole lot of sense to you right now when I say you have to have at least 1 citation per source, but next week, hopefully it will. It's also important, as you do cite sources within your paper, to vary your method of synthesis. By that I mean, don't make all of your citations direct quotes. Have some direct quotes, some paraphrases. Break it up, try to find a balance even, 6 direct quotes and 5 paraphrases through the course of the whole paper or something like that. Some of you may not have that many citations in your paper because if you only have 5 sources, each one cited once, then maybe you only have 5 sources or 5 citations in the whole essay. But I would encourage you to probably think more in the 10 to 15 range for a paper of this scope. The next step is getting into the editing, proofreading, commenting stage. And you may have noticed that I'm going to try to get people to come in for conferences on this. And what that means is I'll have a schedule. You can sign up. You come in and meet with me for like 20 minutes. Bring your paper with you, and we'll sit down side by side, go through it. I'll mark everything that you need to be aware of and fix. And it's just it's a very worthwhile process. Taking the time to do this makes people better writers and improves grades. I realize you maybe don't want to come to campus, you're in an online class, and that's fine. It's not mandatory. You don't have to do this. If you want to just upload it in the Dropbox, I'll comment on it, put it in a PDF, and return it to you, and you can do it like that. But I think if you're really committed to doing well, then I would recommend coming in to see me on this one. Like I say here, this one-on-one stuff works. So it does pay off, and especially in terms of what you're really concerned about, which is, a better grade. And then step 7, submit your revision. One thing I forgot to say earlier that I'll say now is make sure with each of these drafts that you go ahead and put on a works cited page at the end of it. I know you've already submitted it earlier on, but just keep on resubmitting that works cited page, because you never want to turn in a piece of research writing that does not have the sources included with it. All right, I think that's everything for now. More coming next week, especially with the MLA video that I'll try to get out at the beginning of the week. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions, and begin choosing your topics whenever you're ready. Thanks.